microphones off during the whole session. Should you have any questions, please feel free to write via chat. I'll be more than glad to share your questions with our main speaker later on. We would also like to kindly ask you to fill a quick survey we are just about to share at this chat. Please do not forget to answer it. It will only take a few seconds of your time and will give very special insights to the embassy's team. Given that said, I'm very glad to present the speaker who will be in charge of opening this session. I'm talking about CARI's Vice President, Francisco de Santibáñez. Francisco, Mr. Vice President, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Carla. First of all, let me give you a warm welcome to you all, but especially to our special guest, Sahashi Ryo. We at CARI know the importance that the Japanese perspective has to understand the international situation nowadays, and especially when these views come from a renowned expert. Today's talk title is The Future of Asia and the World Order, Impact from the COVID and US-China Relations. This, I think, is a subject that is key at this time because we are now focusing our attention on what is taking place in Ukraine. We should not forget how COVID and the Sino-American relationship may have already changed the world in a fundamental way. In a way also, these changes that allow us to understand today's politically and military conflicts. Finally, I want to thank Japanese Ambassador Nakamae Takahiro for his willingness to work with our institution. In the last months, CARI and the Japanese Embassy in Buenos Aires have worked close, have developed a rich collaboration, a relationship we appreciate very much, and we would like it to continue in future years. So I give the floor to Ambassador Nakamae Takahiro. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Good evening to you all here in Argentina and good morning to Tokyo. This is my great pleasure to host this seminar in collaboration with CARI. My special thanks to Vice President Santibáñez for your collaboration. My special thanks to Dr. Sahashi for this valuable opportunity to learn his insights on the future of Asian and world order in this situation of the COVID-19 and other challenges we are facing today. Dr. Sahashi is one of the most distinguished and renowned leaders opinion leaders in the US-China relations and East Asian security order. So I am so excited to hear his perspectives. As I understand, for many years, for decades, I can say, East Asia and Latin America, particularly the South America, had been indifferent about each other. There was no serious correlations in geopolitical terms between the two regions. However, nowadays, there is not a single day without seeing articles in the newspapers about the US-China relations here in Argentina. We see that Argentina is heavily dependent on both on United States and China. So the relations between these countries hang heavily on the fate of Argentina, not only on geopolitical terms, but also in financial, commercial, and macroeconomic terms. And moreover, I should say that this is not one way. On the other hand, China is also more and more dependent on South American countries, such as Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. with their natural resources such as food stock and very important metals such as copper and lithium. So once the situation in East Asia gets unstable, the performance of these countries in South America, I believe that would matter a lot to the situation in East Asia. So that's the reason why I believe that today's seminar will provide over all of us with a valuable opportunity to enrich our knowledge on the complex situation and in Asia and deepen our understanding on the importance of maintaining and strengthening the international order in this context. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Now it's time for our main speaker now. During his presentations, please leave all your questions in English via chat. I'll deliver it to him happily out loud later. Tonight's speaker, as you will know, is Ryo Sahashi. He is an associate professor of international relations of the Institute for Advanced Studies on Asia at the University of Tokyo, a specialist on international politics in East Asia. Dr. Sahashi, the floor, please, is now all yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening to my colleagues and friends from Argentina. My name is Ryo Sahashi. I'm working for international politics at the University of Tokyo. So this is my great pleasure to talk to you virtually. But of course, I wanted to come to Argentina. I never been to. I'm very sorry to say that. I've been to Latin America a few times, up to Brazil, but I never have a chance to come to Argentina. So this is my very sad things, you know, failing to come to your place. But with the help of technology, this is my great pleasure to talk to you about today's topic. So let me share a screen a little bit. Wait a minute. I have to start from here. So the original title submitted to the institutions just introduced the future of Asian and world order, impacts from the COVID-19 and US-China rivalry. But at this moment, after this February, we have to add one more element to think about Asian and world orders. So maybe if you allow me to change a title a little bit, I mean, you don't need to change the document things, but if you, at this moment, accept my apology to change the title in your mind a little bit, the correct title should be The Future of Orders, Impacts from COVID-19, US-China rivalry, and Russia's invasion or aggression to Ukraine. So this should be the important 3 factors to think about the future. So I think the key question we have to think now is not only the confrontation between US and China, which could have big impacts on the international order, including, you know, big impacts on Argentina. But we also have to think about Russia's invasion to Ukraine, which should be criticized as aggression. And what will become of international order in the future? So this is a key question, and this is a question I want to think with you tonight. And let me start from these things. This is an age of distrust. Distrust is not a good word. Distrust means, you know, we cannot believe each other, right? But this is the age of distrust. We can find out distrust between United States and Russia, Europe and Russia, and of course, US and China. All relationship can be categorized as distrust relationship. This is very deep-rooted and based on facts. This is very clear. Russia invaded Ukraine, that peaceful and democratic country. And Russia also destroyed the international order, destroying international order. This is very clear, at least for me as a professor, right? And this is the view United States and Europe, at least, and also Japan have. So this is based on facts. And United States and China, this is also based on the very clear understanding on each other. United States, I will describe this later, but United States have big fear and distrust on China. This is not like a anger, this is a fear and distrust, right? For United States, this is very clear. China will not go to democratize itself, and China is going back to old days of state-led economy. And China also start to collapse the international order for the eyes of American people. And for Chinese people, this is also the fact. United States is now trying to weaken Chinese growth. So both sides from Beijing and Washington not only hate each other, but distrust each other, right? So this is the age of distrust. This is a very important starting point for our discussion. We didn't have this presumption last 3 decades, 30 years, right? Last 30 years, we strongly believe tomorrow is better, right? And not only Western countries will grow, but we strongly believe everybody in the world will enjoy better life tomorrow with the help from technology, with the help from lack of major war. Globalization should prevent major wars from happening. That was our conviction, right? Of course, we had many wars, regional wars and conflicts. Look at Syria. Look at other Middle East countries and African countries. We had war, but that war was not major war among major powers, right? So we try to believe one dream, tomorrow is the better. So this is a strong presumption after the end of the Cold War. But I think that age is now over and replaced by age of distrust. So I think this is a root cause why many people in the world, not only Ukrainian people, but many people in the world, including you, Argentine people, but including Japanese people, American people, now have big fear. What will happen in the world from now on? Not only nuclear war, but we have really big fear about the possibility of changing presumption. And this is caused by one personality, Putin, President Putin of Russia. Putin had a strong distrust against the West. This is very clear. But we shouldn't think the West, in quotation, the West try to encircle Putin, and Putin try to defend himself. This is a wrong interpretation. Putin has his own view, worldview, and he really wants to stretch out his own worldviews by force, by use of force. Use of force is now prohibited in international law, but he didn't care about that. So we have to think like this way. Putin is now simply seeking his own sphere of influence and taking action against Ukraine. So again, this is a really big change after the end of the Cold War. Last 30 years, optimism we had last 30 years is now disappearing. But we should say, we didn't have strong international order last 3 decades. The international order we had last 3 decades was based on these elements now on the screen. US hegemonic position, supranational integration in Europe, a Chinese and Russian support to the West-led international order, and technology-driven globalization, contributing to a better world. These basic premises was like a dream, right? It was not consent, right? We can go back to 1815. It was, we had the international agreement after the Napoleon War. Or we also can come back to 1919, Paris Accord, a Paris International Conference, and Versailles Treaty after the First World War. Well, we also can go back to 1945 after the Second World War. After the major war, we had big international agreement, and these things created international orders, right? So we can say that time we had order, but after the end of the Cold War, we didn't have the order with consent or with strong foundation, right? Everything was like a dream. But we dreamed for 3 decades. This is a very amazing thing, but that time is over. Of course, this was happening last 13 years or so, right? Like looking back 2007, President Vladimir Putin had made a big speech in Munich Security Conference. And he tried to argue the United States tried to encircle Putin's Russia. And US-led hegemonic order is what he really want to destroy. He didn't hide his own intention at that moment. Around 2008, after the global financial crisis, China also started to be overconfident in itself and try to bully the small countries in Asia, in maritime sphere. So the world, the international order or international politics start to change, start to be challenged from such a divisionistic states from around 2007 to 8. And also we can say from 2014 to 2015, we saw another big change. Russia occupied and annexed by force Crimea Peninsula. And China also started to have really divisionistic activities in South China Sea, making a lot of artificial islands in disputed area in South China Sea. And they even militarize these artificial islands and try to deploy some military force over there. These activities are clearly against the international law and international orders, right? So, we gradually lost or was losing our confidence in post-Cold War international order. So we start to realize, oh, this could be a daydream or no, right? But finally, this dream was collapsed or destroyed by Russia's aggression to Ukraine. So this is my view on what's happening today. And I think the world now is very rapidly reacting to this invasion or aggression by Russia, Putin against Ukraine, because they believe this is a time of crisis of international society. Japan, as well as G7, is now very quick in taking the action to this invasion. For me, again, I'm just a professor from college, so I can say I was surprised very happily by my government's action. I didn't believe Kishida administration, Japanese Prime Minister, was so quick in taking such a big step to provide like body armor and humanitarian goods to Ukraine. It was a big surprise, happy surprise for me. Really. When we hear the news, body armor will be shipped to Ukraine people and military, I thought it might take a long, weeks or months, because my country is very bureaucratic, and they may have a big discussion on, this should be against our arms transfer policy or something. That review process might take a longer time. I was afraid, but everything was done very speedy, and actually it was shipped already with other humanitarian goods. So, what I want to stress is even Japan, such a slow motion country, was so quick to take action, to show unity and help, humanitarian help to Ukrainian people. So this is a really good evidence to show this is a moment all over the world have to show the unity to this historic event happening in Ukraine. And this is a moment we have to show strong opposition, voice of opposition against Russia's aggression toward Ukraine. Having said that, let me come to the second things. We still have to think about China. China is a very complicated country. As everybody knows in Argentina, but also in Japan, China is source of technology, source of economic growth. China is big country. But China's rise also pose one of the gravest geopolitical threats to United States, Japan, Argentina, and rest of the world, because it could have bigger implication and impacts on international order. Why? Of course, like Russia is still having the second largest, the largest, not the second, but the largest nuclear weapons at their hands, including stockpiles. But China has the potential to redraw the global balance of power in terms of military power in nuclear and conventional force, economic power, and scientific and technological power, and political influence. Of course, Chinese nuclear weapons is still, just a 3-digit. But according to the recent report from United States, by 2027, the Chinese nuclear weapons might reach at 700, and it could reach at 1,000 until, by 2030. So, of course, even that number is lower than the United States and Russia. But by that large number, China could deter the external aggression by nuclear threat. And with that help, they might be more bold or confident in having regional conflicts over their neighbors. So this is the issue. I mean, China, not Russia, China is having more potential to grow in all aspects of power. You may want to say, oh, that's fine. You know, we can make a profit from Chinese market. Yes, it is true. That is what everybody have to do, right? We have to make livings every day. But at the same time, we shouldn't lose sight of other aspects of power, including military power and also political influence. So what I'm now afraid is the attention of United States and its allies, like NATO, Europe, is now going to Russia. And such attention, heavy attention toward Russia might become strategic advantage for China and may hasten the arrival of China-centric world. I believe this is what the United States is now fearing a lot, as well as many Japanese people. United States, as well as many countries, realize a rise of China. The challenges are from rise of China, last 5 years or so. We had kept a policy of engagement to China last 40 years. It was 50 years ago that President Nixon visited Beijing and Shanghai and opened the diplomatic channel with Mao Zedong, a Chinese dictator at that time. It was also 50 years ago, Japan recognized People's Republic of China. So after that, international society tried to help Chinese modernization and growth. And that policy we call engagement policy. But we are now realizing that the policy was underpinned by long 3 expectations or premises. That is, we had expectation like China will do political reform. China will do market reform. China will be responsible stakeholder for international society. Maybe we also had another premises. That is the confidence China will not catch up with us very soon. So we had these, presumption and try to, grow China for the sake of our economic interest, and also during the Cold War for the sake of our geopolitical interests to check against a Soviet Union. You know, United States even provided the military equipment to China in 1980s. So that was a moment of expectation and unguarded moment, right? But I think now that time is over. Not only for the United States, but it is very clear for many people in the world. China is not satisfying the expectation we had. Do they? I mean, do Chinese Communist Party have political reform in China? Try to liberalize their market? Or does China contribute to global governance and international society? I don't think so in most parts, right? It was becoming very clear. Xi Jinping China was not satisfying Xi's expectation after he gained the power in 2013. So it is 9 years ago. Also, around 2013, 14, 15, it was very clear China is catching up with the United States. And you know, it is very near future, China will become the real outstanding power in the world. So power transition is coming. So, you know, last 40 years or 50 years, we had a strong conviction. We can change or shape China and Chinese future. China will become like us. China will become like more liberal, market-based, freer society. That was our conviction, I believe. So we made engagement. Of course, you know, unlike American people, Japanese people or Asian people had more cautious view on future of China, we can say, because we are neighbor of China, mainland China. So we are not optimistic like American people about the future. But still, I think, you know, in most parts, we try to engage China because we believe we can manage the Chinese future to some extent. But again, the very harsh reality is China is shaping us a liberal international order. So this harsh reality was recognized or has been recognized from the mid-2010s. So this is the reason now United States and China are still having a really big confrontation or rivalry in politics. President Trump started this confrontation, you can say, but President Joe Biden still continue the very harsh or hardline China policy. And the policy is not only on military aspects or military policy. I think today I may have an audience also from business community and also university or research scientific community. But actually, we from scientific institutions is now having a big headache, right? Because United States try to regulate the scientific exchange with China, like try to regulate or slow down the number of international students and scientists from China to United States, because they have big fear the advanced technology might be leaked to Chinese side and could be used for military purpose. And the United States also try to regulate the flow of money and goods, technology from United States to China. You may be reminded that Huawei, a Chinese smartphone company, Huawei was prohibited, was banned from purchasing United States goods by many regulations. That is not that is not because Huawei made a big mistake in some things, right? That was because, United States government had really big fear about technological superiority of Huawei, right? So, now US government policies is now expanded to regulate any scientific or technological relationship with China. Of course, I can go more detail about this, but it may take a longer time. But so just let me point out, this is a very clear. United States try to control export, import, investment, people's exchange with China. This is totally against the history of last 50 years. To make things worse, China, looking at this situation, started to do the same things against the United States. So last 2 years, Chinese government and Chinese Congress established many new legal platforms to regulate or to punish foreign companies and foreign people for technology and investment and data. So now this is a situation of distrust between United States and China. But actually, both countries, United States and China, try to apply their rules and law to other countries too, like Japan, Argentina, European countries, right? This is which we call extraterritorial application of regulations, right? We always say, oh, United States, you shouldn't do that. Like Japanese government or Argentina government have to be responsible for such a control over export. But United States say, we can do that. We can apply our rules because you use our technology. So we have legitimate power to regulate your export to China. So this is very long situation. Bad situation. But the very bad spiral of reprisal between United States and China over economic statecraft is now spill over other countries in the world. And why do United States and China maintain such economic rivalry? They want to maintain their technological superiority, right? Both countries try to pursue technological hegemony. And they strongly believe the technology, even technology for civil use, could be applied for military purpose. So this is a the root cause of this confrontation. So, but I really believe, this situation will be sustained in coming decade or so. Oh, this is a national security strategy of the United States, which was publicized in last year's March. So this is an interim version of national security strategy, but in there, United States say China is the only competitor potentially capable of combining its economic, diplomatic, military, and technological power to mount a sustained challenge to a stable and open international system. So this is Joe Biden's national security strategy, even though that was draft. The real version, revised version should come actually this year. But I believe, they are now very busy in devising their divisions after Russia's invasion. But, China is the #1 competitor for the United States. Of course, we now have to think maybe Russia is now coming up again as well as China, right? So Russia and China both could be competitors for the United States. Maybe Joe Biden might say that way in coming national security strategy. But still, we have to admit, China is multi-dimensional challenges to the United States, and United States response is now involving many countries, not only in military sphere, but also in economic sphere. But I want to emphasize, United States has legitimate concerns because, China clearly shift technology from United States, Japan, and Europe. And this is also very clear. They use this technology for military purpose and try to, embolden their military activities in the world, not only in neighboring sphere. I can expect they might have more bigger impacts or influence in other regions too in coming decades. So I think now United States, Japan, European countries try to have a new architecture to respond to such a China's rise. Not only having stronger regulations in economy, but also they try to have more frameworks. Let me explain about this. As you know, we have G7. G7 is a very important format among United States, Japan, and key European countries, and Canada. Sorry, I don't forget Canada. But actually, we are now having really many new frameworks. You may hear about Quad, QUAD, we call Quad. Quad is a cooperation mechanism among United States, Japan, Australia, and India. I write the OG OG is Australia, as you may know. So Quad is a very new security framework. Of course, you know, because India is not a former alliance partner for the United States, a Quad is not solid military mechanism. No, it is not. India has no intention to make a military coalition with other countries, you know. But still, India accepted the invitation to Quad. And these 4 countries try to have more cooperation, not only for COVID-19, but also for advanced technologies and rule making. This is very breakthrough. This is a big breakthrough for Indian diplomacy, I believe. Of course, we are disappointed. At least I was disappointed by President Modi's reaction to Ukrainian crisis. I personally was so disappointed by his action. But still, Quad is very important frameworks to think about the new age of China's rise. And AUKUS. AUKUS is another very important and interesting framework between Australia, United Kingdom, and United States. Some people say, according to media, it is a framework for submarine to Australia. It is true to some extent. Yes, Australia will introduce nuclear engined submarine from the United States, but in 2030s, so very in the future. But this framework also has a lot of components for another sensitive technology. So this is a new security framework. We also start to observe many new waves of architecture, like TTC. You may not hear about TTC, but the TTC is a new framework between EU and United States over economic security, including technology. And United States also provocate Indo-Pacific economic framework, which we really want to see the real content and proposal from the United States government. Of course, the weakness of the United States is they cannot come back to Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP. We are really irritated by this. I think this is still Japan's interest to have a TPP as it was and as it is. Right? TPP is a really good framework, in substance and in rule making. But United States cannot come back because of domestic politics. So, but they start to propose Indo-Pacific Economic Partnership. So, like Indo-Pacific Economic Partnership, we call IPEF, IPEF, TTC. These they are a really new economic architecture too. I sometimes call Biden administration is very maniac of new fora or new forums, right? If you are familiar with Cold War history, John Foster Dulles, who was Secretary of State for Eisenhower administration, was called alliance mania. And so I think Biden is a forum mania, right? He established many new forums, right? I don't know, how many he is now thinking to establish, but still, this is a good evidence. United States and the participating country, like you see in front of you, participating country and United States are now realizing this is the moment to create the new architecture to hedge against the rise of China. We also have to think, many negative aspects or challenges from rise of China, like Chinese government had really debt trap diplomacy in last decade. I mean, they try to lend money to foreign countries, but that money foreign countries cannot repay. So after that, Chinese government or government bank try to control the infrastructure of that country. Look at Sri Lanka. Look at some your friend country in Central Latin America, right? So I think this debt trap is still there. This is a very long aspect of Chinese power. We also have to look at disinformation campaign from China. Now some Chinese state media having a campaign coupled with Russian media to distribute some wrong information on the Ukraine. So I think even though we have to admit China is now having a really big economic power, but we should look at the wrong aspect or negative aspect of that power in political sphere and military sphere. And what is the best framework we can have against such challenges is a question we have to think. So I only have another few minutes to conclude my initial remarks. So let me conclude by saying just a few things. But before that, let me drink some water. First one is the importance of vision. I think, what we have to think or what we have to aim is not like excluding China from the world, right? And also, even we have to think we shouldn't exclude Russia in the future, even though we have to stop Russia's aggression to Ukraine, right? After we successfully terminate and end this war, this Putin's war against Ukraine, we have to think, how could we make new international order? And that order should be inclusive, right? But that order, after this aggression and to cope with rise of China, should be based on strong vision and principles. And that principle should be freedom, civic freedom, that means human rights, and democracy, and peaceful settlement of international disputes, right? This is a basic principle we try to have from mid-20th century, right? After the Second World War, or even before the Second World War, we try to establish these principles, right? Peaceful settlement, human rights, and democracy. And also free trade. So I think from that perspective, we have to envision a new world order. The Japanese government has provided the free and open Indo-Pacific as one of the visions. And I think that this makes sense. This makes sense. Right? Even though I sometimes argue we have to define what is a free, in practical terms. That free is not only free trade, but that free also means freedom, civic freedom. And so we should promote more, human rights diplomacy. Even though Japanese government is making a good job now, but we have to do more. This is my position. But the most important point is the new vision is not, or is never exclusive vision, right? Some people say, oh, Japanese people, or is talking about, how hate he is. I mean, how big hate he has against China. No, actually, I don't hate China or, Chinese government, right? We have to coexist in the future, or even now, we have to coexist. But that coexistence should be based on clear vision. This is my point. And toward that vision, so what could be the tool? What could be the measure? I think first one is like economic diplomacy. And the second one is alliance or coalition building. About the economic diplomacy, I still believe Trans-Pacific Partnership is a major asset for Japan and the world. So from that perspective, I personally believe Chinese interests in having discussion with CPTPP countries is really welcome. I mean, Trans-Pacific Partnership is now having a framework without the United States, and China is showing the interest in joining the CPTPP framework, that framework. So I think it is really good we start the negotiation with China if China can change herself from inside. But at the same time, secondly, we have to hedge against Chinese action. For that sake, alliance is really important. Japan-US alliance, Australia, United States alliance, and also NATO alliance. This alliance is important because, look at now. The United States is now trying to leverage against China, not to sell arms to Russia, right? This is very important, to make big pressure against China. We really need big power. And for that sake, alliance still matters. But actually, alliance is not only alliance, but also we need strong coalition. Looking at United Nations or any other international fora, if hundreds of countries is standing up against some countries' action, it could become a big power, and that country might rethink, her own behavior. So I think a coalition building is a really important thing, in coming decades. But the most important thing is we have to share the vision together. Free and open in the Pacific is just one example, but the most important thing is free and open, right? Or freedom, democracy, inclusiveness, peaceful settlement, and free trade. These things are really key. This is a fact we really realized even after Russia's aggression or rise of China. So I believe, we can talk more across the Pacific, across the borders, between Argentina and Japan, and with many other countries? And how could we secure the better international orders? So thank you very much. This is the end of my initial presentation, and I'm very happy to answer any kind of question from any angle. But before that, thank you very much for listening very patiently. And this is my big pleasure to speak in front of you.
Thank you very much, Professor. We will now pass to the Q&A period. We do have a question of Ambassador Alfredo Morelli. The question is, do you blame any responsibility to Ukraine for the invasion? Should not Ukraine should have learned to deal with a big power neighbor?
Wait, can you repeat the question again?
Sure, absolutely. Do you blame any responsibility to Ukraine for the invasion? Should not Ukraine should have learned to deal with a big power neighbor?
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for that question. I don't blame Ukraine, any, at all. Any countries have a right to say with freedom. You may want to say, oh, Ukraine was provocating Russia too much, right? But I don't think so. Ukraine has a right to request anything from any other countries. Of course, Russia, Putin, has a right to criticize that with peaceful means. But this is very clear. Russia invaded Ukraine by military force. This is against international law. This is against United Nations Charter. Period. So I don't blame Ukraine at all.
Thank you, Professor. Next question from Irene Ferrari. First of all, I'd like to thank the Embassy of Japan in Argentina, Professor Sahashi, and all the people who organized this conference. Maybe not the main theme of this lecture, however, considering the threat that the war between Russia and Ukraine becomes bigger and bigger, including other countries on it, I'm personally afraid that if many countries continue helping Ukraine in different ways, Russia decides starting attacking more countries. It's true we must think in humanitarian terms about the people of Ukraine. However, what about the people of those countries is listening at their enemies? I'd like to ask Professor Sahashi if he has thought in a personal way which solutions could be sought in order to solving this conflict. We do also have one more question. I may read it so you answer them both together. From Jorge Malena, he's director of Asian Committee of CARI. What's your view on the future security scenario in the Taiwan Strait, given the lessons that can be learned from the war in Ukraine? Thank you, Professor.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for the question. So first one is, if my understanding is right, how to end the war in Ukraine, right? Yes, now it is very bad situation over Ukraine. But United States have no intention to get involved militarily, even though they provide military equipment to Ukraine. Because President Biden has a really big fear over escalation toward nuclear wars between Russia and United States. I don't think, this war or this aggression toward Ukraine is expanding to Poland or any other NATO countries so easily. At the same time, I still wait and see the progress of war termination negotiation between Russia and Ukraine governments. I believe that is a really tough negotiation because what Russian government, and especially Putin is requesting is high order for Ukrainian people and the government. Even though they say Ukrainian government should be neutral, but that neutrality is not neutrality as we understand, right? So I think war termination is not so easy task for both sides to agree upon. So we have to see, we have to wait and see the progress. Some people or many people in Europe hope Putin might be expelled from the government, the idea of regime change. But I think regime change idea is not so popular even in the United States because it is too risky. So I think a regime change cannot be a good solution for this crisis. You know, if regime change happen in Moscow, please imagine the very big political turmoil or confusion, chaos in nuclear armed state. This is very risky scenario. So, you know, this is my very personal opinion, and personal analysis, but United States might not favor expelling Putin from Moscow. So the solution should be the war termination by negotiation, by diplomacy. But for that, Putin and Russian government should lower its bar, right? But for that sake, now the war itself, I mean, military activity is still favor for Russian side. So I think what we can do is more financial regulations against Russia, and also provide not only humanitarian assistance, but also military assistance to Ukrainian military. So we have to make better condition for the negotiation. So this is the answer I can come up for the first question. And the second question is about Taiwan. I think some people, just after the Russian invasion, some people speculate Chinese invasion to Taiwan might be hastened. My answer is no. Actually, now Chinese position itself is now in very severe because they have a strong connection with Putin and Russia, but they also have strong connection with Ukraine. They even import military equipment from Ukraine before the war, and also with United States, China want to stabilize the relationship. So China is in a very severe condition. At the same time, China really realized how big sanctions they may have after they invade Taiwan, right? Of course, China still saying, oh, this is one China principle is forever, right? Okay, fine. We have one China policy. We acknowledge your position. This is fine. But China is now realizing the real difficulty to have any operation over Taiwan, military operation over Taiwan and small islands Taiwanese government have control. Because if they do, they will have the same, repercussion from the West. Financial sanction is really big, and the Western countries, I mean, like United States, Japan, NATO countries might be united more, like against the Ukrainian situation. So China got a big lesson from this crisis, from this invasion. So Taiwan contingency is not hastened. Of course, we have to prepare for that scenario. And Japan, because Japan is the closest country to Taiwan Strait, we have a very keen interest in a peaceful situation and stability over Taiwan Strait. But at the same time, so for that sake, we have to prepare for the worst case scenario. But at the same time, I believe the timing is not hastened.
Thank you very much, Professor. We do have two last questions, but we do have a little more minutes just to pass to the closing remarks. The first one is concerning South Korea. Given the Chinese rising threat and the recent election in South Korea, do you think Japan and South Korea's bilateral relations will improve? The last one concerns Latin America. What role do Japan and other Western countries expect to Latin American countries like Argentina? On the other hand, what value can the Western countries give to the Latin American region?
Thank you very much for the excellent questions. First one is South Korea. South Korean people just elected Mr. Yoon, and he will become the new president of South Korea in 2 months or so. We have big expectation for the new leader in Seoul. He may, actually, the very good article he posted to Foreign Affairs website. And this article from President candidate Yoon was really good. I mean, really well balanced. And he clearly say he tried to improve the relationship with Japan. And he tried to have more, realistic view on North Korea. You know, the current government in Seoul was putting too much emphasis on negotiation with North Korean leader, even though that didn't result in improving the situation well, right? So inter-Korean relationship is really complicating, but still, I think we shouldn't expect too much the North Korean leader to change their behaviors with carrots, right? So new South Korean leader, Mr. Yoon, might be more realistic. So I believe, you know, even though between South Korea and Japan, we have a lot of historical baggage, but I think, you know, the relationship could be improved in coming years to think about North Korea. And even trilateral relationship with United States might be improved. So this is the answer to the South Korean question. And the final one to Latin America. I believe, you know, Japan and Latin American countries share very important value. You know, the world should be better in terms of human rights, in terms of democracy, in terms of rule making, free trade, and peaceful settlement, right? Nobody wants to see another big conflict or greater power competition, right? I think, you know, if we don't realize that the key problem like Latin America or any other region might be just a kind of new political battlefield between United States and China. That is, they try to give assistance, they try to give pressure, at the same time, right? This is not a good thing, and you don't want to be, you don't want to become the political battlefield between two superpowers, right? So what we really do is to be united against the universal principles, right? You don't need always be aligned with, US proposed principles, right? Sometimes that is not so good. I mean, that is too much pushy, right? Like Japan is more balanced, actually, right? Look at our documents, look at our behavior in the United Nations and in other global governance, and also look at European countries or EU, UK, right? I think, what I suggest is, please align with the United States. No, this is not what I said. What I said is, let's try to be aligned in the coalition of willing who favor free and open or human rights and democracy and peaceful settlement. And that should be the interest for Argentina and also for Latin America. If not, I think you may receive a really big help from China, but also a really big pressure from China too. And you may be in a very difficult position in the future. This is the situation I really worry about in the future. So.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sahashi, and thank you all for your questions. I'm really sorry for the unanswered one. We need to move on to the closing remarks. And now it's time for CARI's Secretary General, Ambassador Ricardo Lagorio, to be in charge of them. Ambassador, floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Carla. Well, we're getting close to the end, so a very brief remarks. First of all, to thank Ambassador Nakamae Takahiro and the Japanese Embassy, and also you, very particularly, Professor Sahashi, Rio. It was a great pleasure listening to you, and it's just the first time that we will meet. We'll meet many more times, and hopefully not only through Zoom. Professor, you started with a trilogy: pandemia, US-China confrontation, and Russian invasion. I think that then you developed that. I don't have much time, so if you allow me, I'm going to tackle the three of them together. Because I think that what we are witnessing in this last month or couple of years, it's something very special. I think that we are entering into a challenge, which is the tension between great power politics and multilateralism. And I think that that's the big challenge lying ahead. Great power politics, we thought that after Graham Allison's book, To See Distrust, that great power competition was United States-China. It might be into the future. Definitely you were very straightforward in pinpointing that point. We have to be very careful. But a black swan emerged as usual. And the first to see this drop was Russia, China, United States. What I would say, and this I think allowed me to go to the other part of the equation, because we don't have any more, I would say today, Russia, US, Russia, Europe, or Russia, Ukraine conflict. We have a global conflict because as the 141 votes in the General Assembly show us what the government of President Putin did was to challenge multilateralism. I wouldn't say global order because in that sense, I follow very much Henry Kissinger, and I think that we still don't have a global world order. But we need to work towards that direction. So I think that we should pay very much attention in the next years to this tension. Are we going to be trapped in a great power rivalry? Is realism back once again, or are we going to try to work towards a multilateral world? Are we going to try to put into motion the 17 sustainable development goals, which I think it's the only path ahead if we want to have a 21st century in peace, prosperity, and as you very rightly say, emphasizing open, transparency, democracy, human rights, but also tackling with inequality, with poverty, with the challenges of science, technology, and innovation. It will be very sad, and I think I consider myself to be a realist, but it will be very sad to go back to old power rivalry just in military terms. It's really anachronistic, much more than reality. So I would like just to emphasize this tension, we don't have much time, and to make a proposal, Professor Sahashi and Ambassador Nakamai. Why don't we think for the second semester of this year to have a seminar? To have a seminar between CARI and a Japanese institution. It's up to you to come with it, to discuss this tension, because I think that this tension will permeate years ahead. We are in a hybrid world with the coexistence at the same time of hard power dimension and military dimension, but also we have the soft power. And I think, and we agree on this, I think that we should go for the soft power solution, the multilateral solution, and the value-oriented solution. That's the only way to have a transit in this 21st century. So again, on behalf of CARI, on behalf of the President Bordon, the Vice President Francisco Santibáñez, I make this concrete proposal to have in the second semester a seminar and to try to tackle this tension between great power politics and multilateral. Thank you very much once again, and it was a pleasure hosting you. Have a good breakfast, Professor Sahashi, and for us here in Buenos Aires, all of you have and enjoy a good dinner. Thank you very much. Ambassador Nakamai, would you want to make a final words? Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. No, I just I'd like to thank Dr. Sahashi for a very insightful presentation. We all learned a lot from you. Thank you very much. It has been a very valuable opportunity. As for the proposal by Ambassador Lagorio, we will be discussing how we can materialize your idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you. Vice President, thank you very much. And have a good night and good morning, Professor Sahashi. Thank you very much. Hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Ricardo.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you very much. Obrigado. See you there.
Muchas gracias. Buenas noches. Buen día.
Thank you very much. So